I swear to God, I don't think I'll ever forget that night. It still sends a shiver down my spine whenever I think about it. And let me tell you, this ain't the usual ghost story you hear at tea stalls. This one really happened to me. You ever had one of those nights where everything feels just a little off? Not wrong exactly, just not right either. Well, it was one of those nights. It was around 1:30 in the morning, maybe later. I was riding my bike through that slum road near my aunt's place after a long, brutal study session with my buddies. You know how it is. Exams are looming, and we thought we could pull an all-nighter, cramming like crazy. Akash, Ranjit, and I had holed up at my aunt's place since hers was empty. Perfect spot for uninterrupted studying, or so I thought. But that's not the interesting part. What happened after? That's where things got weird. So, there I was, tired as hell, half zoning out, just trying to make it home. The cold had settled deep into my bones, and the road was dead silent. No dogs barking, no distant radios blaring from the slums, nothing. I didn't think much of it at first. It's late, right? Maybe people were just sleeping. But as I kept going, the silence started to gnaw at me. I've taken that road hundreds of times, even late at night. There's always some noise, some movement, some sign of life. But not that night. And then, bam. The bike just stops. Out of nowhere. No sputter, no warning. 1 second it's running fine, and the next, it's dead. Now, I'm not exactly a mechanic, but I know my bike, and this didn't make any sense. It wasn't even a problem I'd seen before, just dead. I hopped off, muttering curses under my breath, and squatted down to check the spark plug. That's when I felt it. A weird prickling sensation like someone was watching me. You ever get that feeling? Like eyes on the back of your neck? My heart started racing, but I told myself it was nothing. Just the cold, the tiredness, the silence. But I couldn't shake it. I lifted my head, and through the gap between my bike's body and the ground, I saw her. A woman. Standing maybe 100 meters away, dressed in a white sari. She wasn't there a second ago, I swear. Long hair, white as snow, and she was just staring at me, not moving, not saying a word. Just standing there, waving her fingers like she was calling me. Now, I'm not some jumpy guy. I don't believe in all that ghost stuff. I'm an engineer, for God's sake. But right then, seeing her appear out of nowhere, I felt my stomach drop. I stood up, hoping maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. But no. She was still there, standing, waving those thin fingers like she wanted me to come closer. My heart started hammering. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of it. Maybe she needed help? Maybe she was lost? But something about her, something wasn't right. I tried not to look, forced myself to focus on the bike. I flicked the fuel switch to reserve, hit the ignition. Thank God, the engine sputtered to life. I could feel her still watching me as I glanced over. She hadn't moved, still waving, still silent. I hit the gas, hard, didn't even bother changing gears, just first gear, all the way. My house wasn't far, but it felt like I was driving through quicksand. You know when you're in a nightmare and you're trying to run but everything feels like it's in slow motion? That was me, driving away from that woman. I didn't stop, didn't look back until I got home. I parked my bike outside, practically leapt off, and ran inside. Locked the door behind me, breathing hard like I'd just run a marathon. My hands were shaking so bad I couldn't even pull off my jacket properly. I stumbled into bed and lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to tell myself it was nothing. Just some crazy woman, right? I tried to think of anything else, but her face, her figure, kept popping into my head. I don't know when I fell asleep, but when I woke up, I felt like crap. Headache, fever. My mom took one look at me and said, I must have caught a cold riding home late at night. She's always saying I don't dress warmly enough for winter. But it wasn't just the cold. Something was off. Over breakfast, I tried to tell them about the woman. My dad just laughed it off, said I was hallucinating, probably some poor lady from the slum, out for a midnight walk. But no, No way. No one in their right mind would have been out there in that cold, that late at night, just standing around in the middle of nowhere. Ranjit and Akash called me that afternoon to check in, and I told them the whole thing. Ranjit, he's always the skeptic, said it was nothing. Man, you just freaked yourself out. We were up all night studying. Your mind's playing tricks on you. Maybe. But Akash? He didn't say anything for a while. Then he said, "Bro, you're not the first one to see her." That's when my blood ran cold again. I asked him what he meant, and he told me some crazy story about a guy from his neighborhood seeing the same woman near that slum a couple of years ago. Guy never talked about it again, but word got around. Akash didn't want to bring it up last night because he thought I was just stressed from exams. But hearing it from him, now I knew. I wasn't imagining things. There was something wrong with that place. I didn't sleep well for days. I avoided that road, took the long way home, even in broad daylight. I kept thinking about that woman. What if I'd gone over to her? What if I'd let her get closer? Every night, I felt like she was just outside my window, waiting. Sometimes, in the dead of night, I'd hear the wind whistle through the cracks in the walls, and for a second, I'd swear it sounded like her calling me. Weeks passed, and I kept trying to convince myself it was just my imagination. But you know how people always say that? How do they always try to rationalize the weirdest things? Yeah, it didn't work for me. Every time I rode past that slum, I'd speed up, heart pounding in my chest, eyes darting around, looking for any sign of her. I never saw her again. Thank God. But I can't shake the feeling that she's still there. Somewhere. Waiting for someone else to stop by in the middle of the night, when the air is just a little too cold and the road is a little too quiet. Ooh. And you know what? I don't even want to know what happens if you actually go over to her. If you're into horror stories like this one, don't forget to like, comment, and tell me what you would have done in that creepy situation.